And indeed, that is the question. Where's he going to get the money from?
Thanks, Reese and Heidi. No, we're okay. I think our deficit is still below the target, which is 3% of GDP. And the Marawi incident, I remember, I just released only $20 million because the armed forces of the Philippines and the Philippine National Police have their own budget. So I'm not worried about this supposed to be a ballooning trade deficit. You know, we're a growing economy. We want to make up for past neglect. During the last 50 years, we only spent 2.6% for infrastructure as a percentage of GDP. That's very low, especially in this fast-moving region. So we plan to spend something like 5.4% to 7.4% of GDP for the next 6 years, and we're on track.
Secretary, even your president, Mr. Duterte, is unsure where he can get the money from for free college tuition. Perhaps you should reassure him that you can get it for him. The president, he loves to exaggerate. We're talking about the spending for next year, middle of next year, because semester starts middle of next year. So we have the money. I can assure you that. Let's just turn, Secretary, to what's going on with the Peso. We saw it hit 11-year lows last week. Are you at all concerned about it?
No, I'm not worried about the slight depreciation of the peso. You know, during the Asian financial crisis, it is as far as 55 to 1. I'm not saying we're going that way, but we have a very competent central bank. And we've gone through the Asian financial crisis. We've gone through the global financial crisis. This is a matter of supply and demand. And I think the uncertainty brought about by the Korean crisis has something to do with it. But, you know, I've seen them all. I mean, in the past, every time there is a depreciation of the currency, we run out of dollars to service our foreign debt. That's no longer the case. We have a hefty gross international reserves of around $80+ billion. And every month, rather every year, we expect something like $50 billion coming from the overseas Filipino workers and BPO industry. So I'm not worried about that.
Secretary, I want to go back to the free college tuition bill, because before it was passed, you had tried to dissuade President Duterte from passing it. You've gone from taking that position to a position of saying, you know, it is a good thing and it's not posing any sort of fiscal risk. I'm just wondering what or why you changed your mind.
No, luckily there's a natural transition period because we shifted from K plus 12. That's we put in additional 2 years in our basic education, so that for next year we'll only worry about the freshmen and the seniors. We don't have sophomores and juniors in our state institutions. And then for the second year, that's 2019 to 2020, we don't have juniors and seniors. And so it will take about 4 years to get the full impact of this bill, and we're going to prepare for it. And we're going to limit the number of students by limiting the number of students to this year, no expansion. So I think by doing that, it's going to be affordable.
The crisis in Marawi City, we're in, what, the 3rd month now. At what point do you think you need to start worrying about how this affects sentiment and also real economic growth?
There's only a handful of rebels left in that area. I think a few weeks or maybe a month or two, that will be over, and then we start the reconstruction. I have already set aside about 5 billion pesos for this year's reconstruction to be supplemented by another 10 billion next year, and whatever is required for 2019. You can't do reconstruction overnight. It's got to be a multi-year period. And so we're just waiting for the plan, and then as soon as the fighting stops, we will reconstruct.
And in terms of these Marawi bonds that are going to be used to fund this reconstruction, I should say, the tenor of the bonds, has any decision been made? Because you had the Treasurer saying the market preference is to 5 to 7 years, but the Finance Secretary asking the Treasury to look into a 20-year tenor.
Yeah, fortunately for us, the cost of borrowing money is cheap. I've never seen this kind of interest rate before. And so the 20 billion that's being planned by the Department of Finance is, we will determine the terms, but it's certainly affordable.
I think the government at the moment has got penciled in, what, 6.5% to 7.5% growth for this year. Are you comfortable with that forecast?
Oh, yes. In fact, the second quarter growth rate will be announced on Thursday at 10 o'clock. And we're betting that the second quarter growth will be higher than the first quarter growth. And we're on our way to hitting the midpoint, which is 7% of GDP. And after that, for 2019 onwards, we'll hit something like 7.5 GDP every year.
That's quite a call there, Secretary. Very, very quickly here as well. You know, the question of remittances and the Philippine economy. How do you wean yourself off, well, the amount of money coming in from your Filipinos living abroad?
Well, annually we get something like $30 billion. Okay, and it has not changed. Crisis or no crisis. Okay? We went through the global financial crisis. We were expecting slowdown. There's war going on in the Middle East. We're expecting slowdown, but we still get $30 billion every year. So it would seem that it is invariant to what's happening outside the world.